seems to be a frequent flyer.
Attorney David Robinson is talking about Sergeant Stephen Koo. As we reported last week, the 12-year veteran of the Detroit Police Department has amassed more complaints against him than almost any other officer on the force.
He a gangster with a badge.
I've been called a by him. I've been called a by him.
In his 12 years with the department, Koo has been among its most sued officers, too, amassing at least 8 lawsuits filed against him, costing taxpayers to defend and often settle. The cases run the gamut, from alleged assault and battery to deprivation of civil rights to gross negligence. In each of the lawsuits, Koo was just one of several DPD officers named.
He was trying to antagonize me.
In October 2016, Terry Parnell was at his mother's home when Koo and his partner showed up in the front yard. Parnell said he had a legally purchased and registered handgun, and when the officers arrived, he took it out and placed it on the front porch, and they took him to the ground.
Tried to give them my paperwork. They didn't want to receive it. Handcuffed me, took me in, booked me.
A citizen can have a gun on their own private property.
Parnell sued DPD for wrongful arrest. He settled the case and a separate lawsuit against the department, where Koo was not a defendant, for $375,000. The city admitted no wrongdoing.
Their job is to protect and serve, not abuse.
Lisa Ingram and her family say they were in their driveway when Officer Koo and his partners arrived to conduct a raid on their neighbor's home.
So you had nothing to do with the raid?
No.
You just lived next to the raid?
Right.
Still, they say they were handcuffed and detained as if they were the target.
They had guns to our head, tell us to get on the ground, shut the up. We ain't, got no right to talk, any of that.
The family sued. The city settled, again admitting no wrongdoing, for $130,000. To date, the city has paid out more than $800,000 in cases where Koo was a defendant.
And they jumped out cussing, and people took off running.
And today, the city is defending a lawsuit filed by Mark Gaddis. On the night of July 21st, 2017, he and members of his family were gathering out on the front lawn of his aunt's home in Detroit when a dark car pulled up.
They really just heard the car, and instantly a few people started running, so instantly my reaction was to run. As soon as I started running, I heard somebody say, I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna shoot you. So I really started running fast then.
The men were cops, including Officer Koo, but Gaddis said that wasn't clear at first. It was dark. They were in a semi-marked DPD vehicle, and their headlights were off. The officers briefly apprehended Gaddis, according to the complaint, kicking him and beating him before Gaddis broke free. At that point, he was shot twice, once in the buttocks and again in the back of his ankle. Officers said Gaddis had a gun in his hand and tried to use it. He was taken to the hospital in temporary serious condition.
I woke up in the room. They just kept trying to make me say I had a gun, and just trying to force me to say, and that's what happened that night,
Gaddis would be charged with 11 felonies, including assaulting a police officer.
Did you have a gun that night?
No, sir.
Detroit police investigated the shooting, ruling it justified. During trial, multiple officers said they saw Gaddis with a firearm, and Koo said he raised it. But 2 witnesses in the neighborhood said just the opposite, that Gaddis had no weapon. One even said his hands were wide open and empty as he ran away from officers. When forensics tested the gun that police said Gaddis handled, it couldn't conclusively match DNA found on the gun to him. He faced 11 felonies. A jury acquitted him of all of them. Today, Gaddis is suing the officers and DPD.
Every eyewitness testified, stated unequivocally, he had his hands in the air, they didn't see a gun, there was nothing in his hand.
In federal court today, DPD stands by its officers. In a motion to have the case tossed, attorneys wrote, Gaddis' active resistance to the officers' attempt to detain him, the blading of his body and pointing a weapon, or what was perceived to be pointing of a weapon at officers, and the recovery of a handgun in the vicinity of where Mr. Gaddis fell, further established the requisite probable cause for his arrest and prosecution. We reached out to Sergeant Koo for comment on the lawsuits against him. He did not respond to our calls or texts.
It's like a gang in itself. I'm more scared of them than I am of actual any gangs that's out there in Detroit. That's who I'm scared of.
Perhaps the most alarming thing about all the lawsuits against Sergeant Koo is that they appear to have been a mystery to Detroit police. His internal employee profile, intended to track officer performance, doesn't show that he's ever been sued. Not once.
He has been sued 8 times, and none of them are in this profile. Does that trouble you at all?
Yes, I mean, our mass database should be accurate in terms of number of lawsuits, yes.
How that happened is being investigated today, and as a result of our story, Interim Chief James White has taken Koo off the street and is personally reviewing all of the 85 complaints against him and why some were dismissed.
I am concerned and I'm absolutely disappointed in some of the findings.
A DPD spokesman declined comment on the Mark Gaddis case as it is still pending in federal court. I'm Ross Jones.